Hello everyone, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now you are able to see the screen. Are you able to see the screen?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So number of participants are very less, 24. I do not know whether they have got the message that the class has started. So I will start from there where I left. Earlier I have told you that how to prepare the nanoparticles, the things of that. You can do by two methods. One is top-down approach and another is bottom-up approach. So both these approaches, a top-down approach can be done by using machines and bottom-up can be done in the laboratories by various chemical methods. So here all the processes by which you will learn that how to synthesize nanoparticles are related to bottom-up approach. So first way of synthesis of nanoparticles is by Sol-Gel method. So Sol is a colloidal suspension, or you can say the solid dispersed in the liquid is called as Sol, and gel is liquid dispersed in solid. So here the transformation of Sol into gel occurs. For this method, the precursor or the starting material is either a metal or metalloid element which is surrounded by various ligands. For example, most widely used precursor is tetraethyl orthosilicate. So here you can see this transformation of a salt to gel, and the process involves various steps. So first step is hydrolysis and condensation of the material or the starting material. So here the starting material is a metal alkoxide. This can be metal or metalloid, and this is the formula how we write a metal alkoxide. This is oxygen, this is any kind of alkyl group. This salt is dissolved in water, and when it is dissolved in water, this process is known as hydrolysis. And after this happens, that metal alkoxide dissolved in water, we have these two molecules, metal hydroxide and alkyl hydroxides. Then it again reacts with the metal alkoxide, again reacts with the metal alkoxide. So this condensation occurs between this MOH, ROM, and ultimately we get this metal oxide. That is our target. That in by this process we are preparing metal oxide nanoparticles. After these two steps are over, hydrolysis, condensation, then actually we should let this solution to get stable, and the condensation will occur along the molecules. When the molecules will come close to each other, and there will be a formation of a network, just like that I was telling you, this way. Like you have the basic structure, this is the metal oxide, and all these molecules in the solution will come close to each other, and they will form, going on forming a network of this. Now you can see here that how the molecules are, or the entire thing is growing in size, and therefore there we can say that molecular weight also increases, and slowly what happens, the solution is transforming into gel due to the formation of this kind of network. Now aging of the gel, which is also known as syneresis, that is let this network grow. So this process can go up to more than 7 days. That is called as syneresis. So we should not disturb this arrangement, or we should let this polycondensation go on. After a few days, when this gel formation is over, or it seems that gel formation is over, then there must be a process of dehydration. Now, if the solvent is alcohol, instead of water, alcohol, or a mixture of water alcohol, then it evaporates on its own. And since we are keeping this for almost 7 days or more than 7 days, slowly naturally the dehydration takes place. But we should ensure that the water molecules are completely evaporated, or the alcohol molecules or the solvent molecules are completely evaporated. That's why we should subject it to calcination. Calcination can be done or taken up to a temperature of 800 degrees centigrade. So after calcination, we will have to ensure that all the solvent molecules are evaporated. Then further drying should be done at a very high temperature when this network gets collapsed. First, this from the pores, all the solvent molecules will evaporate, then this network will only remain. And when we are again applying the high temperature for densification and to ensure the complete dehydration, when it is subjected to high temperature, then cracks occurs or this network gets broken down and we get the metal oxide nanoparticles. So that is the last step. So this is the entire process of sol gel formation. It is you have to prepare a precursor solution, stir it properly. So that is the hydrolysis, then condensation, let it condense or it undergo polycondensation, gel forms. After the gel forms, then there are two methods, whether you want a zero gel or you want an aerogel. So here these two things are different. I'll show you that. See the aerogel. This is the lightest material. So aerogel, it is how it forms is as I have shown you this thing. Like here, when this all the solvents are evaporated, this place will be filled with air or any gas. So this entire network will remain there, but these pockets will be filled with the air, and in this way the aerogel forms, which becomes the lightest material and lightest nanomaterial. So that is called the aerogel. But if you do not want to do that, and simply you are applying heat and evaporating the liquid from it, then what happens? From silica alcohol you can directly get the zero gel, where the network completely broken up and you get the powder. It is called the zero gel. Okay, so this is the final compound in the form of either aerogel or zero gel you get after the sol gel process. So what I have told you is this one, that is, if you have this instead of metal, any metal, you can have the metalloid or the silicon taken, and this is hydrolysis. It happens here. Uh, this is the entire reaction. So here the bond forms like SiOSi or metal OM, what MOM I have seen shown you. Yes, so this kind of reaction takes place, and ultimately it looks like this gel formation. That is, see, these molecules are agglomerating or coming close to each other to form a network, and slowly this gel gets formed and we are getting the nano material. So this is all about the sol gel process. Now this is a difference between the aerogel and zero-gel. This is just for your information. You should know it. And then comes the advantages and disadvantages of sol gel process. This is very simple method. Actually, nothing has to be done. Precursor should be dissolved in a solvent and then kept it as it is. So at a low temperature or room temperature, it can be done, and with a high purity. And nanoparticles with different size and morphology can be synthesized by varying synthesis parameters. So you can alter the temperature, pressure, or the solvents, experimented with many things, and desired nanoparticles can be synthesized. But some disadvantages are there, like how to control the particle size. We must ensure that the particle size is nano. That is difficult because it is a growing of the particles. Automatically it grows. So how to control it is a problem. Then any kind of foreign bodies should not, you will have to prevent it. Any kind of impurities or newly formed particles are coming and agglomerating with the desired particle, that may also happen. So you want a particular molecule, instead of that molecule you get 2 or 3 kinds of molecule, and they are formed during the reaction. this may also happen. You cannot control it. That is a problem. And production rate is very slow, and the yield is also very slow. Suppose we want to some product, doing some reactions to get some product, and the percentage of conversion is not much, then it is called as the yield is very low. So if yield is very low, then the process becomes expensive. Okay, so this is about one kind of process by which we can synthesize nanoparticles. Uh, Now, secondly, second kind of uh, method by which you can prepare nanoparticles is called as or known as precipitation method. Sometimes it is also called as co-precipitation method. So in this second kind of preparation of nanoparticles, there are again we'll have to choose the uh, precursor. So here it is simple precursors can be taken like inorganic metal salt, like simple as sodium chloride. So inorganic metal salt, metal can be sodium, potassium or any metal, and its anions can be chloride, nitrate, acetate, etc. Anything which is soluble in water, that kind of salt should be taken and it should be dissolved in water. So simple precursor is inorganic metal salt and the solvent is water. So after you prepare this salt solution, then to this salt solution, uh, we'll have to add some base. It may be sodium hydroxide solution or ammonium hydroxide solution. Then stir it properly. Stir it properly, and the metal undergoes hydrolysis. And what happens here is metal salt treated with sodium hydroxide or any base is converted into metal hydroxide. So here the precipitate forms, and let the precipitate grow, and let the aging go for at least for 6 hours or more than that. Then you get the metal hydroxide precipitate. Once you get the metal hydroxide precipitate, or for that matter, you may also get metal oxide precipitate, you will have to filter it off. So filter the precipitate, and then the same thing, that this precipitate can undergo calcination or can be subjected to high temperature, so that all the solvent gets evaporated and you get the metal oxide nanoparticles. So to ensure that the metal hydroxide precipitate remains pure, you will have to wash the precipitate with distilled water 2 to 3 times, and then dry it and calcine it at high temperature to get the final metal oxide nano powder. So both the methods, salt gel method and precipitation method, are done to get the metal oxide nano particles. So advantages of this method is that the process is relatively economical and very simple. It can be done in a simple laboratory, college or school laboratory. And by this method, single and multi-component oxide nanopowders also can be synthesized. And here yield is also good. So applications are by this method, and this is a very usual or common method to prepare the nanoparticles or nanopowders, like zinc sulfate, zinc oxide, and aluminum oxide nanopowders can be synthesized. Okay, so in this way, you have learned about two kinds of methods by which we can prepare nanoparticles. Now the third method is this one, that is the chemical vapor deposition method. Uh, this is chemical vapor deposition method. Here we must have a reaction chamber in this way, and this reaction chamber is maintained at a very high temperature like 700 to 900 degrees centigrade. And here we can introduce in this way we can introduce the precursor and the carrier gas. Both are gaseous reactants, and one carrier gas like helium inside the chamber. Now here the precursor can be like, precursor depends on that which kind of nanoparticle you want to prepare. So it can be a simple metal nanoparticles, or can be metal oxide nanoparticles, or organometallic nanoparticles, anything. So whatever nanoparticles we want to prepare, the precursor should be converted into gaseous form, and then that gas is mixed with a noble gas like either helium or argon, and it should be taken in the reaction chamber. So why we use a inert carrier gas to maintain here the inertness, that is there should not be any other particle which will be added as impurity to the nanoparticle. That's why this inert carrier gases are used. So at this high temperature, the gaseous species move on the substrate. There is the substrate where you want to prepare the nanoparticle. So these reactant gases or reactants, they get adsorbed on the surface of the substrate, and then the reactants undergo chemical reactions with the substrate to form the nano film or the nano deposit here. So here what happens actually, at a high temperature, everything gets in the nuclear form, and the nucleation takes place. Slowly these 2 to 3 atoms or 4 atoms, they combine with each other. So that is nucleation takes place in the reaction chamber, and they get deposited on the substrate. And sometimes it also happens that you are passing the gases. These gases at a very high temperature gets atomized, and slowly these atoms, they come close to each other, and then they get deposited in the colder region. That also can be done. So what happens is, on any substrate, if the nanoparticles are deposited, then afterwards the desorption of the gaseous byproducts can be done, and after that these nanoparticles can be scraped off from the substance. It just a scraper can be used, and we can scrape off the nanoparticles, and other gaseous things or gaseous materials, there is outlet, it goes off. So that is the chemical vapor deposition method, and most widely used for preparing the carbon nanoparticles like carbon nanotubes or graphenes, etc. And very common method in most of the laboratories where the nano material research is going on there. They have this kind of instrument where nanoparticles can be prepared. So advantages are that deposition rate is very high. Deposition of nanoparticles rate is very high. Method does not require high vacuum. It produces high purity deposits, and it has good reproducibility. So there is nothing to always experimenting. It is an easy method, and where the yield is very high. So this finishes your 3 processes of preparation of nanomaterials. Okay. So once you learn about the nanomaterials, uh, what are the nanomaterials, how to prepare the nanomaterials, then you must also know that what are the properties of the nanoparticles, how the nanoparticles changes their properties, and how they become different from the bulk properties. So these properties of the nanoparticles are very important, like how the surface area changes, optical property, electrical property, thermal property, and catalytic property of the nanomaterial changes. So first we will start with the surface area of the nanoparticles. So when a bulk material is subdivided into individual nanoparticles, the total volume remains the same. The volume remains the same. You can see here, volume remains the same, but the total surface area is increased. This is not the nano size, but still if it is converted into nano size, the same area from where you are getting this portion changed to nanoparticles, see that how the surface area has been increased, and it is a general procedure. You divide or make the smaller and smaller particles, you get the larger surface area. Okay, so for nanoparticles, the same volume of the bulk material gives high surface area or large surface area if it is changed into nano size. Then second property is the electrical properties. Electrical properties of the nanomaterials or nanoparticles. The electronic bands in bulk materials are continuous due to the overlapping of orbitals of atoms. But in nanomaterials, very few atoms are present, hence electronic bands become separate or discrete. As a result, some metals which are good conductors in bulk become semiconductors and insulators in nano level. All of us, we know that how a material which is a conductor, what about their band structure? Band structure is nothing but the outermost orbitals are overlapped with each other. So in a conductor, there is a no band gap. In a semiconductor, there is a band gap. And in an insulator, the band gap is very large. All of you know this. So when in a bulk material like this, there are several atoms and the atoms are closely packed, and therefore what happens is their atomic orbitals also easily overlap with each other. But when you are converting this bulk material into the nanomaterial, then what happens? Nanomaterial or nano size means nanomaterial is nanomaterial is when you have only very few number of atoms. Few number of atoms, obviously the overlapping of the outermost orbitals becomes less, and therefore there is a band gap results. Therefore what happens, a good conductor may become insulator if it is converted into nano size. For example, graphite is a very good electrical conductor, but carbon nanotubes with the hexagons, the carbon nanotubes with hexagons oriented in the configuration labeled armchair have electrical properties similar to metals. Other two configurations of nanotubes like zigzag and chiral will only conduct the electric current when extra energy in the form of light of an electric field is applied to the free electrons from the carbon atoms. Depends on how the atoms are arranged, whether it is zigzag or armchair or chiral. So all depends on that which kind of nanomaterial will act as conductor and which will act as insulator. Then about the thermal properties. Thermal properties, a material in bulk has high melting point, suppose, whereas a material in nanoscale has less melting point. Because when the material is converted into nano size, the surface atoms are in contact with only fewer atoms and require less energy to overcome intermolecular forces. When a material is melted, that means what? These intermolecular forces should be broken down. So when you have very small number of atoms in the nano size, then very easily the intermolecular forces can be overcome, or can be molecules can be separated so that it melts. So less energy is required. For example, cadmium selenium, this is a bulk and it melts at 1678 Kelvin. The same substance, when it is converted into nanoparticles, it melts at 700 Kelvin. And you can see the color change also. The same material color changes and the melting point changes in the bulk and in the nano size. Then comes the catalytic properties. This is gold. Okay, gold, and it shows in the nano size, its color also changes. So the catalytic property of a material also depends on the particle size. When the material changes from bulk state to nanoscale, the size of the particle reduces, surface area to volume ratio increases, surface area increases. Since the surface area increases, it increases the catalytic activity. So any substance which is not catalyst or do not show any catalytic property in the bulk size may show the catalytic property in the nanoscale. So these are the few properties which we have described that how the bulk and nano size particles they differ. So similarly for optical properties, in material in the nanoscale, for example gold, okay, has a different color in the nano size. This is the bulk size, golden is golden color, okay, and when it is converted into the nano size, you can see same gold solutions is showing different color. When the size of the gold nanoparticle is 20 nanometer, it is showing red color, and when it is greater than 100 nanometer, it is showing purple color. So the nanoparticles absorb light and emit light at a specific wavelength, and as the particle size varies, the color of the same substance or the same material also varies. So this is a very good example that how the bulk and the nano size are showing the different optical properties, how the properties are changing when the size of the particle is also changing. Hence, today's class I have discussed nanoparticles, nanomaterials, nanomaterials, etc. And then how to synthesize the nanoparticles, and about the different properties of the nanoparticles, how they change or differ in the bulk and in the nano sizes. So again, meet you tomorrow. If you have any queries, you can ask me. And I am finishing this meeting. Today's class is over.